My God.
Hello, this is Matthew Robert Payne, and this is an interview with Elvis in heaven. There's been a part one, and this is part two. So if you want to look at the heading of this video and type part one, then you can watch part one first and then come back to this. There's going to be 5 questions in this video. And I imagine the video may be up to an hour, maybe shorter. But Elvis has been in heaven. How long has he been in heaven?
47, I think, Matthew. Older
47
than
years.
I am.
And he's just, when this book comes out, he'll get promoted to realm 7, which is the highest realm in heaven. And so Tulu Sarah Johnson here is my co-author. She's going to ask the questions, and then Elvis is going to answer the questions. And like with anything, I let the people who speak through me speak as long or short as they like. So I look forward to this interview. So Tulu, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Matthew, and welcome, Elvis. So this is a continuation of our conversation, and this section is focusing a lot about your music in heaven if you're still making music, basically. So the first one says, do you still sing and perform in heaven? If so, how is it different from her?
In heaven, I record songs to help people grow closer to God and grow closer to Jesus. I did sing some Christian songs on earth, but you could say that all the songs in heaven are pretty much Christian songs. There's 2 charts in heaven. There's a contemporary chart that you can sing ballads and stories about your life and stories about your progress in the Christian faith and life in general. You can sing about another person, like I've sang a song about Matthew before. You can sing about other people. You can sing about your life on earth and lessons you learned on earth. It's just a general category which allows you to sing like secular songs on earth, but you could sing love songs in that contemporary chart. The other chart is the worship chart, where it's songs about Jesus and lifting Jesus up and lifting the Father up. I'm especially good at writing songs for the contemporary chart. I feel more comfortable doing that, but I've grown in my relationship with Jesus. I've been keeping pace with John Lennon, and I've grown particularly close to Jesus and the Father, and so it allows me to write worship songs that resonate with people. John writes deep songs, and I tend to follow his lead. So we have concerts in heaven. You may have 20,000 people in the audience in a stadium. And what happens, you've heard this in other books, but if this is the first book you're reading on heaven by Matthew, you're able to perform your concert for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and then you can have like a meet and greet for a couple of hours. But heaven stretches time, so you may spend 2 hours in heaven time meeting people, talking to them for a couple of minutes and then taking a selfie. But the 2 hours stretches to like 2 weeks in heaven time. So time stretches. So it's just 2 hours, but you spent 2 weeks doing it. So you can meet and greet everyone in the audience, and they can not only get a selfie with you, but commercial artists in heaven can paint the pictures and they can put the artwork of you and themselves on their wall in their house, and have like a portrait placed up there. And a lot of people do that and order that. And there's a tremendous amount of artists in heaven that paint paintings that do that. There's concerts happening in heaven every day. There's thousands of artists in heaven. One of the favorite things people do in heaven is they go out for an early dinner and then go to a concert in heaven. Sometimes a concert is done at a dinner table, and there's dinner tables and play a concert to people seated having a meal. Sometimes they go out for dinner and then go to a stadium and have a concert. So there's always commercial artists painting the paintings. Nothing costs money in heaven. If you haven't listened to any of Matthew's videos before or read any of books, the meal that they go to and have dinner is free. The concert is free. The portrait of you with the selfie shot is free. They take the selfie on their phone and just send it to an email address, which is the artist, and the artist gives them a call when the artwork's done. So if you ever want to be an artist, you can paint pictures of landscapes and different things, but nearly every artist paints pictures of portraits of people too, and people really appreciate that artwork. So if you're a fan of mine and you come to a concert, you can come to a meet and greet concert. There's certain concerts that you have a meet and greet and you get a picture painted, but getting to that special form of concert, you've got to win a competition to be entered into the prize. So not every concert has meet and greets, but just people who've won competitions. So the whole of heaven is in competitions. All the pastry chefs are in competition. All the Chinese cooks in competition. All the Italian chefs are in competition. Everyone, the florists are in competition. There's competitions in every form of work. And if you win a competition, you can go to one of these special concerts. So people are always striving to get in a stadium where they can meet and greet. And Matthew actually comes to heaven and preaches in heaven with his angel Bethany, and people get to meet him and get paintings done of the meet and greet. So heaven is a remarkable place, and have a lot of fans. We've got music playing over heaven's airwaves, and there's competitions in heaven on the music. Everyone who's an artist releases music on a Sunday night in heaven, and all the new music plays over the airwaves in heaven each week, and people vote between 1 and 10, for each song, and the top 150 songs get played more often, more than once, and then people are always listening to the music and voting. And if you get in the top 150 songs out of everyone in heaven, your song gets played more than once. And then the people who get the top five songs in heaven, the most popular top five songs in heaven, get to play in the throne room the next Sunday and perform for the whole of heaven and perform for Jesus and the Father. The people who get the most popular song and the second most popular song, Jesus sings a duet with them. So it can be very special to have a song come first or second, to have Jesus singing the song with you. So I do perform, and where I wrote songs to entertain people in heaven, on earth, I enjoyed it when people liked my songs, and in heaven I write contemporary songs that people enjoy, write my music on earth. But the aim of being a musician in heaven is to draw people closer to God, and I seem to achieve that with my music. I'm very satisfied. I've won a few competitions, but I tend, like John Lennon, to write music that's deeper and maybe not as popular as the most popular sort of music that Michael Jackson tends to write.
Oh, thank you. You
Finished.
said so. Thank you, Elvis. You said so many things in there, and I've got more questions just to delve deeper into things that you said. You said the aim of musicians naturally is to create music that draw people closer to God. Do you think people share that common goal? All musicians in heaven, do you think they understand that should be the common goal of getting people closer to God? Or is this something that people are getting to know now through John Lennon's transformation in heaven?
Uh, it's twofold. The music is to entertain people and draw people closer to God, and another reason for writing music is to express yourself and demonstrate your character and demonstrate your emotions and your growth in heaven to people. So if you've just come across a concept in the Bible or developed in some area in your life, you could write a contemporary song about that subject and how you've learned that subject and how you know more about that subject now, and write about your journey. So it's twofold. You're writing about your life and your journey in heaven and your journey in life, including your life on earth, and you're also writing songs to draw people closer to Jesus. Hopefully, with a combination between your worship songs and your contemporary songs, people grow closer to you, grow closer to your mindset, and through growing closer to your mindset and understanding the things you're going through, it builds understanding in the people, and the people draw closer to Jesus.
Thank you, Elvis. You mentioned something about your journey in heaven. How has your journey been? What has been your experience of growth in heaven?
I started in Rome 4, 47 years ago, because you go to different realms depending on whether you were intimate with Jesus or you achieved your life's purpose. And I achieved my life's purpose. I was I had an okay faith, but I'd really achieved my life's purpose. It got me into a higher realm. And I met John like 5 years after I was in heaven, and John was I was in John's welcome party, and he was very impressed to meet me, and we both set a goal of drawing close to Jesus, and we spent a lot of time studying Jesus and meeting Jesus, asking Jesus questions, and growing closer and closer to Jesus. At a certain point, we started to experience the pain and the suffering and the trials of Jesus, and the more we drew closer, the better friends we become, and you can write about his pain, you can write about his suffering, you can write about his trials, and people tend to uh, like those songs if it's about Jesus, and but they're not the most popular songs when you're writing about his suffering and pain, because most people in heaven would prefer to hear about a happy Jesus, and a lot of worship writers in heaven talk about the good aspects of Jesus and the happy aspects of Jesus. There's not a high percentage writing about the pain of Jesus, and it's a harder route to take, and you don't win as many competitions with that theme in your music, but it really helps with your own personal growth to be able to not only love Jesus but fully understand him.
Oh, wow. What you said there is very powerful, Elvis, about when musicians choose to go in line when musicians decide to write music that focuses on the pain of Jesus or the pain of the Father, a lot of times those musics are not popular because only few understand it or are interested in going to that level of relationship with God. And sometimes if a musician focuses on that, which John Lennon has focused on for so many years in heaven, that means that might not be popular like they want to be, because that your music might not be winning like the competitions, because not a lot of people understand. So, but you will have personal growth, even though you might not be well known or your music might not be winning competitions, but you will be having a deeper and closer relationship with God or with Jesus at the same time. So, from your own experience, which one do you think people should yearn for? Should people yearn more about knowing God, clinging on to understanding his pain more? Or should we value other things like maybe the competition, winning the competition? Which one do you think has worked for you as an individual? And what have you learned from leaning on choosing to follow the
The,
pain
the,
of?
the key the key to intimacy with God for anyone is to understand all facets of God's personality. You can imagine a diamond ring on someone's hand, and it has a whole lot of facets on one side and then just one cut on the other side. It would seem like it's a wasteful diamond. Like half of it would be shining thing, and the other half would be dark. The cut side, um, and people like the sparkly side, and they're all happy about the sparkly side of the diamond, but it's on the one cut side that you find true intimacy with God. Um, it's a special cut that you can explore Jesus and explore God. When you climb into their heart and you see things from their perspective, the whole diamond is shining, and you see the perspective of the whole diamond. But most people just see uh, what they want to see. Um, so it's hard to draw people, but um, you can't draw people to intimacy that don't want to be drawn to intimacy, and and part of knowing anyone is knowing the good and the bad about anyone. Being a true friend is being through the good and the bad. So you can be a popular musician in heaven and writing hits about Jesus, and Michael Jackson was doing that for years until he collaborated with John Lennon, and then he found that it's good to write hits, but it's also good to write deep music that brings deep change in people. So we do a combination of music, um, writing a song that's going to touch people like 50% of people is a good song, and it can be more popular. But writing a song that only touches 10% of people is a better song because it just refines only
Mm,
10% of the people and makes gold. It's like drawing the gold out of people. Um,
mm,
so um,
mm,
so I'm like John. I write deeper songs that appeal to less people.
Thank you, Elvis. You said something that it's worth it to trade that popularity for genuine, intimate relationship with God, with Jesus. And that is what you currently run after because you want to know the deep part of God. From your closeness of friendship with John Lennon, what impact has he had on you?
We've grown together. He's a really interesting person. I'm not as deep and thoughtful and mystical as John. Mary Magdalene, someone Matthew remembers speaking, I think it was Princess Diana, said that you can't have a conversation with John Lennon unless you want to talk about Jesus, because that's all he ever talks about. And it's true, John is really deep and mystical, and but I love talking to him. We've got a lot in common, and uh, I've written songs about Jesus and some of the saints in heaven. I've come to know Isaiah, and I've written songs about Isaiah. I've studied Matthew's life, and I wrote a song that became number 2 in heaven in the contemporary chart 1 week about the life of Matthew. Songs written about Matthew that are deep about Matthew's life. Matthew's a bit of a star in heaven, and songs written about him are just like writing a song about Jesus. And so that performed well. So each step of your journey, you can write songs about your growth and your pursuit of Jesus, and you can write contemporary songs about that. So I've written about John and our journey together, and it's good to study the same subject together. And Jesus and the Father have been a study of our heart.
Oh, wow, that's so beautiful. You mentioned Matthew there, that you have written songs about Matthew. I know few people have mentioned that as well about Matthew's life. Even though Matthew is this well-respected person in heaven on earth, people don't tend to recognize him or even give him any attention whatsoever. What do you think draws you into Matthew's life? Why have you written about what is so special about Matthew's life that people on earth that we can see and that people love about his life in heaven?
He's just so transparent and honest and obedient and humble, and he's lives a good demonstration of Jesus' life. He's totally surrendered to Jesus, and sometimes he does really impossible things for Jesus, and he's a good example of the sort of person that you want to be. And so heaven knows him from his books and from his visits to heaven, and he speaks in heaven, and he's like a hero of heaven, and it's just because he's such a dear and close friend of Jesus. Jesus talks about him all the time. Jesus uses Matthew's life in illustrations when he's teaching, and that's new information to Matthew there. And so he's dearly loved, and his song about him that's in depth will perform really well.
Wow, that's powerful. And have you collaborated with other musicians who are also in heaven as part of your music that you've created?
I have worked with other musicians uh, to help certain musicians perform and write some of their lyrics and help them with their music. I've been like an instructor of people in music. I've I've taught music in heaven. I've been used to teach music in heaven, but the only fully trained musician that I've collaborated with is John,
Mm.
and we've worked together and released songs together. But I have been used to teach musicians. I've got a grand piano, and I can play the piano, and sometimes I can have a room in my house with 100 pianos, and everyone plays their own piano, and I teach music. Um, so that's another good thing, is not only to have students, but have students performing well in competitions too. Um, and uh, and uh, one of the famous singers, King David, teaches musicians too, and David's really close to me. And sometimes I take on some of David's students. He passes them over to me. So there's a real reward in teaching people and having other people produce songs. I listen to all the songs that my students come out with, and uh, and from time to time I collaborate on a song with one of my students, and
Oh,
it gives it a little bit more pep, and it performs better in a competition if I've collaborated with the musician.
wow, thank you. Elvis, you've been in heaven for a long time. Do you still feel any sense of connection to heart at all? Or you forgotten about the earth and just focus on the present in heaven?
Depends if you've got people on earth that you're watching their life.
Mm.
Matthew was used. I've known I was going to do a book with Matthew for years, and Michael, I know Michael too, Michael Jackson, and Michael bilocates and walks with Matthew, and I've bilocated and walked with Matthew on earth when he goes out. I've been with him as a witness of what he's doing, and I've learned about Matthew. And certain people on earth are important to heaven, and I watch their lives, and so I keep up with what they're doing and how they're interacting with earth.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. So, is there any kind of music that exists in heaven that doesn't exist on earth?
Everything, another way to look at it is everything on earth comes from heaven.
Oh, wow. Everything.
Yeah, all the creations on earth come from heaven.
Mm.
Yeah. So all the
So,
forms of music on earth are true in heaven too.
including those contemporary musics that do swear and curse.
No, but there's forms of rap music that you can have that doesn't have cursing and swearing in it. Uh, Matthew has a rap artist that he follows that doesn't have cussing and swearing in it. So nothing evil on earth comes from heaven, but uh, you can find rap music in heaven.
Thank you, Elvis. And how is your relationship with Jesus now?
Uh, I've grown really close to Jesus. Jesus is he's my sunshine and he's my
Wow.
moon. Uh, he lights up the day and he lights up the night. He's a source of inspiration and perspiration. He inspires me and he encourages me to work.
Mm.
His tears are creative. You
Wow.
can grab one of his tears and put it on the ground and grow a plant. Uh,
Mm.
you can speak to the earth and grow a plant. Um, Artists in heaven can paint a landscape and then
Mm.
they can go out into nature and the landscape has appeared. The picture on the painting has appeared.
Mm.
They can draw a hut, a wood hut, in a forest, and then they can go out to the forest and there's the wood hut that they've created with their paintbrush. Um, so Jesus is highly creative and highly emotional, and he appreciates friends. I really wish I'd really like to impress people that growing close to Jesus is the best thing that you can do, and he doesn't have a lot of friends. You'd really think that Jesus has a lot of friends on earth, but
Mm.
he doesn't have a lot of friends on earth or in heaven. People are stupidly selfish and
Mm.
they pursue their own desires and their own needs and their own wants. And not a lot of people take time out to get to know him and understand him. And uh, John has found, uh, as he's been adopted by the Father, that
Mm.
he simply asks God questions and God
Mm.
cries at his questions because he's asking deep questions. And you can ask Jesus deep questions and you can see his eyes well up with tears. And uh, he, one subject, and this has been mentioned in books before, but one subject that you can raise with Jesus that will always have tears come into his eyes is you can mention Matthew, and it just fills Jesus' tears, eyes with tears, just because Matthew suffers so much and so dear to his heart. Um, Jesus, uh, he finishes your sentences. You have a thought. You're thinking of asking him, and he answers your question, your thought. Sometimes you don't even get to say what you want to say. He's just answering your questions, and may have a number of questions, and Jesus will just speak for 15 minutes and answer 15 of your questions. He'll just start speaking, and you've had a whole lot of questions during the week that you want to ask Jesus, things you want to explore. Jesus will just answer one question and continue talking, and it just answers your whole week's questions. So when he's answered your whole week's questions, it leaves room for you to have other questions, because as questions are answered, you get more questions. The same as when you do these interviews, you get more questions as we speak. You're asking questions that aren't covered in the text. Matthew said he's going to answer 5 questions, and you've done more than 5 questions. So the same as I speak, you get more questions. And when Jesus speaks for 20 minutes, you fill up with more questions for him, and then you can start to ask him questions. And Jesus may go off for another 20 minutes answering your next 10 questions. And then when you speak to Jesus, you always have questions. And when you've got a good relationship with him, he's so patient to answer anything you have to say. And you soon learn. I've been to heaven for 47 years, so I learned it pretty fast. But you soon learn not to be jealous, not to be selfish, and ask selfish questions, and questions about yourself, and questions about your own desires and your own needs. And you start to relax and ask more important questions and deeper questions and more profound questions. And when you get the focus off yourself and you're focusing on people and you're focusing on Jesus, you're focusing on the betterment of heaven, the betterment of earth, and you've got more divine tastes, and you've got more divine desires. The question time really opens up with Jesus, and you could be speaking for days, and it would just seem like you've been speaking for an hour.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. You are right, Elvis. I'm totally out of script. All the questions I'm asking is not what Matthew is looking at. So, I'm just going to ask one or more 2 questions and we'll close it for this one because I could see Matthew dozing off already. So, I wanted to ask you, Elvis, you said something about Jesus crying, that you've seen Jesus cry. How do you feel when Jesus is in tears and you're with him?
It makes your eyes fill with tears. It's like being in a movie theater and being attached to an actor in the movie, and the actor starts to cry. You start to cry. Watching TV, not many people go to the movies now, but watching TV and one of the actors cry, it fills you with emotion. So when Jesus cries, it's emotional and it makes you emotional. But Jesus can make some very good points in tears.
Wow.
He in the midst of tears, you not only remember what he says, but you remember his tears. So it's really important, right? Jesus
Wow.
would say something like this in tears, all I ask is for people to obey me.
Mm.
They want to worship me, but they don't want to obey me. And it breaks my heart. And if he said something like that in tears, you just understand so completely that obedience is just so central to Jesus' heart. And when people on earth don't understand his 50 commandments and his 54 parables, when they've never understood his 50 commandments and obeyed them, and his 54 parables and obeyed them, then they're really lacking. Jesus' 50 commandments can be found in Matthew's book, The Commandments of Jesus Made Simple, explained by Jesus himself. And his parables can be understood by reading Matthew's book, The Parables of Jesus Made Simple, explained by Jesus himself. So if Jesus said, why do people call me Lord, Lord, and do not obey what I say? And he said that in tears. I really wish people would obey me. it makes a thing, and you can imagine writing a song on that theme. And so some of our best discussions end up in a song. Like I get the inspiration for a song from sometimes when Jesus cries. It's really emotional. I've spoken to Jesus before and been having a deep conversation with him, and we've written a song together. We've just composed the song together, and whenever Jesus composes a song with me, it does really well on the charts. Jesus is a really experienced musician. He knows what to say and what to sing and the music to go with. Jesus can play instruments and is musically gifted. What you don't know is Jesus is gifted in everything. Jesus can speak to a nuclear physicist. Jesus can speak to a vegetarian. Jesus can speak to a chemical engineer. Jesus can speak to any occupation in their language with their words. Jesus understands everything. So Jesus is a great baker, a great Chinese cook, a great sous chef, a great pasta chef, a great Italian chef, a great artist, a great musician, a great singer. Jesus is everything. He's everything. He's better than anyone. Like Jesus said very clearly, no one can become greater than his master. And there's so many people on earth that quote John 14:6, John 14:12, which says, "I've got to go to the Father, and you'll do greater things than me when I send the Holy Spirit." And people quote that verse and think that if they do greater things than Jesus, that they're greater than Jesus. No one is greater than Jesus. Jesus said, no one can be greater than his master, but if they become good, they'll become as good as their master, but not greater. There's no one greater than Jesus. No one understands life and humans like Jesus does. And he's fascinating, and you can research honestly. You can spend years. You can spend years researching any subject and talk to Jesus about it at depth, and he understands, and he's got questions for you, and he can answer your questions on anything. And some people ask Jesus when they're going to be healed, or they ask Jesus for the numbers of the lottery, or they ask Jesus impossible questions. And those questions don't get answered. But when you get your eyes off yourself, you can ask Jesus all sorts of questions, and he's got answers for you. So Jesus is the most perfect human being in the world, and he can have a million conversations at once, and he just longs to have two-way conversations with people, and he longs for people to understand him like he understands. He's very self-aware. He's very confident in himself, but he's broken-hearted because the world's a mess, and people are just inherently evil and selfish, and it breaks his heart that people just don't care.
Oh, you're done.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was enjoying what you were saying, so I was just lost in your conversation. You mentioned so many things in there that I wanted to follow up
You don't
on.
have to cut it short. We've got 20 minutes until an hour, so
Okay, Matthew, that's good. So I wanted to ask, you said Jesus is so filled with a lot of creativity. He can do a lot of things. You could ask him any question and he will have answers to it. And he's ready just to listen to his children. Do you think we tap into that creativity, do you think we tap into Jesus the way he wants us to tap into it, even for people in heaven, not just people on earth? Do people take advantage or maximize that opportunity to have a great conversation with Jesus, especially when you say when you can get your eyes off yourself, that you're not just thinking about yourself, but you're thinking about the greater good? Do you think we focus more on that, and do we maximize what we could have benefited from Jesus?
Hardly anyone taps into Jesus. Even in that conversation, Matthew found out things. The problem with mankind, both on earth and in heaven, is they're just so selfish.
Mm,
Everything is about them.
mm,
Everything is about them and their family and their wealth and what they want.
mm,
Uh, you know, not many people. Matthew's not a musician, but um, so he can't hear music. He can write poetry and lyrics, but he can't compose music or hear music. But if Matthew was a musician,
mm,
Jesus would be able to play him songs, and he'd be able to write them down and and record them. You know, uh, Matthew was talking to a girl who could hear in the spirit, and he introduced her to Michael Jackson, and
mm,
Michael Jackson sang her a song, and she wrote
mm,
down the song and started to play it on the keyboard. It was a really groovy song.
mm,
So stuff like that can happen if you can hear from Jesus. Um, you would be shocked. Well, you know yourself from experience that the Holy Spirit helps you with a whole lot of things in your work, but not many people actually exercise the power of the Holy Spirit and the knowledge of the Holy Spirit and the wisdom of the Holy Spirit like you do. But Jesus is really underutilized, and um,
mm,
it happened on the boat. The boys were sailing when they went to uh, the um, the person called Legion. They were on the boat and there was a storm and Jesus was asleep. And they
mm,
woke him up and said, "Don't you care that we die?" And Jesus rebuked the waves and it was still. But why was Jesus asleep?
mm,
Because the disciples thought they knew how to sail, and they just told Jesus to go and lay down. They didn't realize that Jesus was a sailor too, and Jesus could do just as much as them. Jesus was so busy
mm,
fasting night and day and staying up and going without sleep that Jesus had time to rest. So he laid down and was fast asleep in a storm. Um,
mm,
and but that was typical of the disciples thinking, it's typical of us thinking
mm.
that we know better. And if people could just get over their selfishness, Jesus could teach them so much.
Wow, we think we know better. And in that scenario, the disciples had to wake Jesus up. Do you think we, the children of God, even when we are faced with problem, do you think we come back to God, or do we still try to figure it out ourselves?
Well, you know the answer to that. Humans try and work out the problem themselves, but it's not until they're truly desperate that they call on Jesus. When they've tried everything that they can, like people pray to be healed, but that's after they've been to the doctor and the doctor's medication isn't working. You know, they go to
Absolutely.
healing ministries then to see if they can get a miracle, but it's not until they've tried something themselves. People get a headache and they reach for a painkiller. They don't put their hand on their forehead and pray for the headache to go. Matthew's stopped himself from 3 headaches just by laying hands on himself and praying for. But each time he didn't have pain medication in his house, so that was his only choice, and he did it. But he's removed migraines from 2 people already, so he's got like a school for headaches.
That's very funny. It's got like a school for a headache. Well, I'll remember that next time when I've got a headache, I can tell Matty to pray for me. You said selfishness, that the way selfishness has destroyed womankind. What do you think selfishness has cost us, especially for people that are in heaven as well, and they're still selfish? They can see Jesus, they see him on weekly basis. They've got this opportunity to understand him better, and still we still focus on ourselves. So what has that cost us in our relationship with Jesus?
Honestly, people in Realm 1 in heaven, and I'm speaking to the people in Realm 1 in heaven right now, is that you have life so well,
Mm.
but 90% of you there don't want to grow and don't want to become more intimate with Jesus. You're happy you found your favorite tourist destination and you're permanently on holidays there. There's so much more to heaven. There's so much more to Jesus. And there's so much more to a relationship with Jesus. And you could type in your iPad now, I want to know Jesus better. And a prophet will respond to your iPad and give you directions. So press the button, I want to know Jesus better. And if you're on earth now and you want to know Jesus better, you can type in the number seven, Keys to Intimacy with Jesus. And you can search for that book on Amazon under Matthew Robert Payne and read that book and begin a journey into intimacy with Jesus. And if you want to grow in your Christian faith, just look up Matthew Robert Payne on Amazon and search through the books and go through the books one by one and learn about Jesus. Jesus wants to know you. He wants to open up his life to you. But if you're not interested in him, you're not going to have those long conversations where Jesus answers 15 of your questions that you've been pondering for a week. Um, there's certain people like if you were an entrepreneur and you had multi-million-dollar company and you met another person that you really admire that knows a lot about your side of industry and now worth like $50 billion, you'd have so many questions for that person about industry. And if they're happy to answer your questions and meet up each week, you'd have another week's worth of questions for that person every week. And if that person was happy to spend time with you, it'd be so exciting. And if you started putting that into practice, your life would just grow and your business would grow and you'd make so much more money and everything would be working really well. And you've got that resource in Jesus, but people don't take advantage of it. They just got to get eyes off self, and that really is the key to get your eyes off yourself. And it's a shame that only 10% of you in Realm 1 want to know Jesus better because Jesus is such an amazing person. He's got so much capacity. He's got so much knowledge. He's got so much wisdom. It's just like you've got a university professor and he'll give you 2 hours a week just to pick his brain for information. If you're studying university and the professor's subject was the subject you're going to write your thesis on, you'd spend 2 hours with that professor each week, hitting him with more and more questions. But you've got a university professor in Jesus, but you don't ask him the right questions because you're so focused on yourself. You're so focused on who you are. But if you get your focus on bettering the life of people on earth or bettering the life of people in heaven and making Jesus happy, if you focused on something else, you may actually achieve something.
Oh, thank you, Elvis. You are absolutely right. I guess that's one of the ways Matthew has been coping as well with all the pains that he's experienced, being able to think beyond himself and focus on the assignment. I've seen times that Matthew will be telling me that I'm going to wait for another 7 to 12 years because then Ilana will be quite grown. I'm like, really? You want to wait for that long? That's a long time because I know he will be in heaven today if he was given the choice. But he's still willing to extend that time, even though he experiences a lot of pain, a lot of loneliness, and ever could have been a better experience for him. So I learned a lot from him, like that selflessness, like surrenderness, like just think beyond yourself. Because if I was thinking about myself, about my happiness, probably I wouldn't be happy because I would be thinking about how lonely I am, how this. There could be a list of things that you think is not right. But once you shift your mindset from yourself and you focus on what does God want me to do? Why am I here? Focusing on the assignment, everything just changes. When I wake up, I like to do these conversations, but sometimes because of meetings, that could have been moved to later, maybe 4 or more than 5 hours after Matthew has been waiting. And he's still waiting, waiting, waiting. I know sometimes the waiting frustrates him, but he does that. He loses his sleep so that he can be manic, so that because his messages are more powerful, so that I can be happy. There's so many things I have learned from Matthew that has really helped me to see myself beyond myself, if I make any sense in what I've just said now. I don't think that I've experienced, I love talking about Jesus a lot because maybe because I had this long interaction with him over the years. But how has Jesus, through your understanding of Jesus now, how has his humility, transparency, love changed your life? How has he helped you to be more selfless?
So many times Jesus explains points and he he uh, he uses Matthew's life and he uses other people's life to give his illustrations and make his points, tell stories. But my favorite illustration of Jesus is when he shares things out of his own life, his life on earth and his life in heaven. He'll say there's a person in heaven who's an architect, and he's building one of our high rises in heaven. I just spent the morning with him, and he wanted to put an atrium in the top of the high rise, and he's wondering if he could put a waterfall coming, and he'll start explaining something, but it's got a greater point. He wants either a waterfall coming from the top of the building through the roof, or he wants to have a garden on the foyer. But he can't have both. He doesn't know which one to have, so he's asking me which way to do it, and I told him it's heaven. He can have whatever he likes. He can have both. Uh, it doesn't have to conform to mankind's
Mm,
rules. He could have water uh, falling into a pool from the waterfall, and the pool be there. But if people want to see a waterfall, they can see. Uh, a waterfall falling down into a pool, but if people would prefer to see a garden, they can see a garden there. And we're
mm,
two separate things there, depending on what the guests want to see. And
wow.
and your life can be different uh,
Mm,
according to perspective. So,
wow.
according to the visitors of that building, if they like gardens, they'll see a garden. If they'd like to see a falling waterfall, they'll see that. And you can build your life Elvis, depending on what you want to achieve. You can do the impossible. You can have a song mean completely 2 or 3 different meanings and appeal to 3 different audiences with the same lyrics. You can do whatever you like. To one person, it could be a love song between husband and wife. To one person, it could be a love song between Jesus and them, and to one person, it could be a love song between a father and a son. And it can be the same song. It can be ministering to a greater reach of people. And he'll just use an illustration like the architect and the atrium of the building to bring out a point and then bring the point through. So Jesus will often talk about his life and his experience and use stories and parables about his life and explain points. And he'll use other people's stories that he's dealing with, and he won't necessarily mention their name when he explains it to me, but the name doesn't need to be named. There really is an architect in heaven that he was talking to, that like Matthew knows that people can have waterfalls in the in the buildings, because Steve Jobs has a waterfall coming into a pool coming in his living room, and when Matthew was in his living room talking to him, all he could hear is you could just hear the whoosh of water falling into this pool, and the pool was siphoned off and the water was sent somewhere else. But he had this waterfall bursting into his living room. It was just beautiful. Um, so, um, so that architect doesn't exist, and so he'll be talking to someone else next week, talking about your conversation and talking about your issues and using you in the illustration. And the closer you get to him, the more he uses you in illustrations. And Matthew was with a preacher and spent a couple of weeks with this preacher, asking him hundreds of questions, and grew really close to him. He gets mentioned sometimes by Matthew, and he had a friend in Coffs Harbour that travelled overseas and used to go and watch that preacher preaching overseas. And the next time he saw Matthew, he says, "Oh, Matthew, you're a hero all through Asia." He says, "Every time Mutu does an illustration, he uses your life. He tells stories out of your life." Um, so Jesus will do that. And as you become close to him, you'll become a hero in other people's eyes, because they're always hearing from you. And I'll hear Jesus preach in heaven, and he'll use an illustration out of my life and my experience with him. Sometimes he'll mention, I was speaking to Elvis last week and he said this, but most times he doesn't mention your name, but tells a story and makes you like fill up with tears. You've impacted him so much that he's using your story in his story. And so that's one of my chief aims, is to impact Jesus' life so much that he uses me in his illustrations.
That's a beautiful thing to look forward to impact Jesus' life in a way that uses his life, your life as an illustration, like he uses Matthew now. Thank you so much. Yeah, you've really blessed me with a lot of your responses for the question. I think I'm just going to ask you that how would you love to round this chapter off?
I just want to share with people that Jesus is a real person and he's got real feelings. And when you ignore him, it hurts him. When you sing him praises but you disobey him, it hurts him. When you say that you love him and you don't obey his commandments, it hurts him. It breaks his heart that he has 50 commandments, and none of you know what his 50 commandments are, and breaks his heart that he told 54 parables, 54 stories, and none of you know what those stories mean and how to live them out in your life. I quoted the names of the books earlier in this part two, and I encourage you to go and buy those two books and learn with that. And even if you learn what the 50 commandments mean and how to do them, and you learn what the 54 parables mean and how to play them out, it'll take you 2 to 5 years to put that into practice every day in your life. And I encourage you, if you want to impress Jesus, then if you say you love him, obey his commandments. And John 14:15 says that. John 14:21 says that. John 14:23 says that. And John says it 9 times. If you love Jesus, obey his commandments. So I encourage you to not to break Jesus' heart, but learn to obey him and learn to speak to him and become his friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Elvis. That's me.
Okay, if you listen to this video to this point, please press like. If you're impressed by this video and you want to encourage me, please write a comment. God bless.